Kawasaki and Honda each recently launched a new 300cc dual sport model for 2021. Now in this video we are going to compare the KLX300 with the Honda CRF300L, and we are going to conclusively decide on a clear winner, so stick around. Hi, I'm Francois from AdventureBikeTroop.com, where we chat about bike riding, maintenance, new models and cheap-ass XR mods. In this video we are going to compare the new Kawasaki KLX300 with the Honda CRF300L, both which are now available in the USA from 2021. Now when it comes to comparisons between bikes, there's nothing more useless than an inconclusive result. And in this video we're going to pick a clear winner. When it comes to comparing motorcycles and picking a winner and deciding which one to buy, there's nothing more reliable than comparing online specs. Wait, that doesn't seem right. No, to pick the right bike, there's nothing more important than taking the bike for a spin. You have to feel the bike for yourself. You have to see what it looks like. Looks are important when you spend a lot of money on a bike. And the very most important thing when deciding on a bike is how it makes you feel. I mean, what can be more important than what the bike makes you feel like? It's not about what other people think and which one is slightly faster than the other. It's how you feel when you ride the bike and when you look at it in your garage. But unfortunately, since we don't have the bikes available for testing yet, I devised a little contest. So we're going to look at the specs, compare the two bikes, and award a point for each specification where one bike wins the other bike. But because these bikes are so very similar, I mean they are really very similar, and I was actually hard pressed to guess a winner, I'm going to award a point if a bike wins by a margin of 10%. I mean, who can feel the difference between 15 and 16 horsepower? So only if a bike wins any of the specifications by a margin of 10%, it will be awarded 1 point on the leaderboard. And please, I'd love you to guess, because I couldn't guess a winner. I actually picked the wrong bike when I had to press myself for a guess. So please, in the comments below, type in what you guess are going to be the winner if we look at the points. Now, adding to the wins on the specifications, I'm also going to award 1 point for every unique feature that one bike has that the other one does not. So if, for instance, the Honda has LED headlights, which it doesn't, the L doesn't, the Rally has, and the Kawasaki doesn't, then it will be awarded 1 point. So the more features that one has that the other does not, the more points. So please pick your winner and comment below before watching the rest of the video. So let's start this contest with what I see as an ex-KLR cheap-ass owner, the most important feature when buying a dual sport bike, and that is the price. So I had a look on various online resources, the websites of the manufacturers and various magazine sites, and I've made sure that I found comparable prices or similar prices on all the sites. And from what I could find, the manufacturer suggested retail price for the Kawasaki KLX300 is $5,599 and the Honda is $5,549. So that's a $50 difference. Now I have to add that some sites mentioned the Honda can be had for $5,249 without ABS. With ABS is $5,549. So I took that price, and that is a 1% difference. Even if you take the cheaper price for the Honda, it's still less than 10%. So it's still a tie of the price. They basically cost the same. Then the second feature, and this is sort of a silly one, but don't worry, it gets more interesting later on, it's the engine side. We know it's both 300cc's, but if they can squeeze out a couple of extra cc's, hopefully it's more power. We don't have power figures yet. None of the sites or press releases feature the power figures, so we're going to look at the engine size, and assuming that the larger engine will have slightly more power. So the Kawasaki is 292 cc's versus Honda's 286 cc's, slightly smaller for the Honda, but still only that's a 2% difference. So inconclusive, it's still a tie after the second round. And now we are coming to more important features that can actually make a real life difference, and that is the weight of the bikes. Now, a 300cc, it's beginning to be a more powerful motor. It's both fuel injected, but the weight is going to play a big role. when you take it off-road or when you want to tour with these bikes. So the Kawasaki KLX300 comes in at a wet weight of 302 pounds, with the Honda at 309 pounds. So again, only 2% difference with the Honda slightly heavier. But if we look at the old 250 models, the Kawasaki came down 2 pounds from 304, and the Honda came down a whopping 13 pounds from the old CRF300L. So with a bigger engine, they shed a lot of weight, so that's a great plus, and they are almost exactly the same now for the 300cc models. So that's after round 3, still a tie, so let's hope we get a tiebreaker soon. Another important real-life feature, especially if you want to take these bikes on longer trips, a weekend trip or tour with these bikes, is the fuel capacity. And again, unfortunately, there's nothing in it. The Kawasaki is a 2-gallon tank with a Honda a 2.1-gallon tank. Now, if you want a larger tank, you can go for the Honda CRF Rally. I can't remember the tank size. I'll put it up here somewhere, but that will really extend the range. So the Rally is a nice addition, which we don't see in the Kawasaki. In Kawasaki, we have the Versys 300, but that's a very different bike from these small CC thumpers. Okay, so we've dealt with price, engine size, maybe power, the fuel capacity. So what about braking, the safety of the bikes? So we had a look at the disc diameters of both bikes. So if they spend a bit more money on the brakes, hopefully the brakes are going to feel better. So if we look at the front disc size, the Kawasaki is 250 millimeters in the front, dual pot pistons. The Honda is 256, slightly bigger, again dual pot pistons, and that's only a 2% difference, slight advantage to the Honda, but I can almost guarantee that that small size difference is not going to make a difference. What about the rear? So this was a surprise. The rear and the Kawasaki both have single pistons in the rear. It's 240 millimeter disc at the rear. The Honda is a 220 millimeter disc. So this came close to give a point to the Kawasaki with a 9% larger rear disc. Rear disc is nice, or rear brakes are nice, especially if you go off-road. You want to steer with the rear. We use the rear more off-road. So that is definitely some advantage to the Kawasaki. Whether it translates into real life advantages, we are yet to see. But anyways, that's almost a 10% difference, but still we are on a tie at 0 all. Now, a very important feature with these small off-road bikes, especially if you're a larger rider and if you're gonna be more aggressive off-road, is the suspension setup. So we had a look at the suspension travel. So in the front, it's 10 inches for the Kawasaki KLX300, 10.2 inches, so almost exactly the same for the Honda CRF300L. So that's what, a 2% difference. In the rear, very interesting, the Kawasaki is 9.1 inches suspension travel in the rear, whereas the Honda is 10.2% or 10.2 inches. So that is a 12% longer travel suspension in the rear for the Honda. And here I had to decide, is this really a win for the Honda because it's longer travel suspension? I mean, longer is always better, isn't it? Or is this a win for the Kawasaki because the Honda will just be too soft and wobbly? But in the end, I decided let's gonna go for longer is better. So that's 1 point for the Honda CRF300L because it's got a longer travel suspension. So I'm gonna say it's better off-road. I know some of you are going to laugh and you're welcome to pop in the comments, but we are going to come back to this at the end. Okay, so something else that is a real big consideration when it comes to dual sport bikes and even the small little 250s and 300cc's is the seat height. I mean, for female riders generally and a lot of male riders that are say average or less than average height or length, seat height is a problem sometimes, and yeah, so to put your feet on the ground is a real benefit when you go off-road or in tricky situations or when you have to maneuver the bike, turn it around, etc. So the Kawasaki has a seat height of 35.2 inches, so it's quite tall already, with the Honda 34.7 inches, so that's a 1% difference, nothing in it, so they are almost exactly the same. And the suspension, the stiffness of the suspension will make a difference because as you sit on it, they will both lower. So if the Honda is more wallowy, it will come down to an even lower seat height. So that is something, and that's why it's so important to go and sit on the bikes. You can't just look at specs. You have to go and sit on the bikes and ride the bikes. Now, the last specification that was available and that is meaningful to compare is the ground clearance. Ground clearance is awesome. So if you want to go over something, stumps, rocks, ruts, whatever, pavements. So the Kawasaki KLX300, very interesting, is lower than the 250, the outgoing model. So even though the seat height is higher, I think, if I remember correctly, one thing that definitely is lower now is the ground clearance at 9.8 inches. With the Honda at 11.2 inches, so that's 14% higher on the Honda. It makes sense with the higher or the longer travel suspension in the rear. It's funny because the KLX300 has a higher seat height but a lower ground clearance. So somehow they were not that efficient with the spacing of everything inside the engine, etc. With Honda, there's more ground clearance, so that's a clear advantage to the Honda, especially if you go off-road. So currently we're sitting on 2-0 for the Honda CRF300L over the KLX300. But we haven't looked at the features yet, so that's what we're going to do next. So with the Honda in the lead, 2-0, we are going to go into overtime now. We're going to look at the unique features of these two bikes. So the first thing, I scanned through the press releases. I read both press releases, scanned the websites of the manufacturers to find features that the one bike has that the other one does not have. So the first thing that I found, and this is a huge plus, is that the Kawasaki KLX300 has adjustable suspension. I think it's rebound damping in the front, and in the rear it's preload and rebound. So a lot of suspension adjustment, and that possibly makes up for the longer travel suspension of the Honda. And so that is a huge feature on a bike in this price range, and the Honda does not have adjustable suspension. So I would say that more than makes up for the earlier arbitrary 1 point that we gave the Honda for the longer travel suspension in the rear. So one big point for Kawasaki, and that puts Kawasaki back in the game at 1-2 compared to the Honda. So the next feature that I found was in the Honda press release, the CRF300L and the rally model. The Honda now has a slipper clutch. Now that is a feature that you only usually find on more expensive adventure bikes and road bikes, street bikes. So a slipper clutch in a bike in this price range, that's a huge plus. It helps preventing that rear wheel from locking up if you downshift aggressively. And it's just a smoother ride. So that is a big plus, or 1 point for the Honda. So we're back 3 for the Honda, 1 for the KLX300. And now the last feature that I could find, and I really compared all of what I could find online, and if you saw something else that I missed, please comment below. I'd love to learn that and help the viewers out there. And please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up so more people can find this that could possibly help them make a choice here before they go take it for a test drive, obviously. Now, the last feature that I found was the ABS. Now, the Honda, various sites give prices for non-ABS models and ABS models. I think the difference is about $300. In the Honda press release, some places it said, and that was, I think, a Japanese press release that I read the first time, it said the ABS is standard on the 300L now with the CRF, the Honda. So ABS, there's definitely some form of ABS. Either it's an option for $300 or it's standard. So that's on the Honda. You can still switch it off. That was a feature in the press release. With the Kawasaki, I couldn't find any mention of ABS, either on Kawasaki's USA's website or in the official press release from Kawasaki. And if you have a look at the photos, close-ups of the front wheel, I can't see any ABS sensors or wires coming down. So that is definitely 1 point for the Honda at this price range. I mean, I compared the prices and they were similar for the Honda with ABS and the standard Kawasaki KLX300. So that gives us 4 points for the Honda versus only 1 for the Kawasaki KLX300. So our clear winner is the Honda CRF300L. Does it mean that's the bike you have to go and buy? Absolutely not. You have to go and ride these bikes, look at them, see which one looks the best. Go and try it out and see how the bikes make you feel when you look at it, when you sit on it, when you start it, when you ride it. And then a huge feature, that adjustable suspension on the KLX300. I mean, that is something that I think more than makes up for the slipper clutch and the ABS on the Honda, that I don't feel is that big an advantage. So I would weigh that more when making my decision. And then that long travel suspension in the rear of the Honda, that's almost negligible. So I would say it's very close to a tie, but it's conclusive. It's right there on the screen. The Honda is the winner, so you go buy the one that you like best. Anyways, please give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you next week, and thank you for joining. Cheers.